All right. Well, my wife decided to cut my son's hair for the first time. She wanted to save money. Her sister had a clipper kit and had done it with her son for a while, so she was gonna learn. And so we got over there. I'm holding him, and she's getting. She didn't really know what she was doing. Katie's in the other room, kind of yelling out instructions, and she cuts the sides. Then the top, she was supposed to use a 6, My wife misheard, and she, runs a 2 over the top. He's got this kind of bald patch. We fixed it, but it was kind of like I'm watching her trying to learn, and I'm like, I'm glad it's him. He'll never know. He won't be scarred or anything. Like a half hour later, she's looking at my head, and she goes, "You know what? I could cut your hair." I'm like, not going to happen over my dead body. Yeah, keep practicing on Ben, but it's just like, I could do it. I just watched you butcher Ben's hair, and I'm not letting you touch my hair. So, I'm sorry, I'm embarrassing her here, but she did a good job. She's first time. But all right, we are we looked last week. I'm just going to review real quick treatment of the heartbroken. How to treat Christians, how to treat anybody in our life. Really is so important. Relationships. I was talking to a man came in with tool rental place, so we had a lift, started talking to me. I showed him around. He's Catholic, and he, and we were talking about our church and stuff, and he goes, I kind of feel like our church, you just kind of go and show up and leave, and that's it. You don't really get to know anybody, and half an hour, everybody's in and out, and I go, we're different. We're a family. I feel closer to some church members than I do my own family, and there's a difference. And we have a community. We do a lot. We have the live nativity. That's hours and hours and hours of setup and work, and there's chance to get on people's nerves, irritation. When you're around people more, there's chance for problems, and we're learning how to deal with people. We looked at treatment of the heartbroken. I just said there's so much heartbreak. So many people are suffering. If you go to about everybody in this room, there's something, probably a burden that you have, or something on your heart, or maybe you just come out through a tragedy or something, or everybody. When you get to know people, you'll find that they're going through something, which is really important that we spend time with people, get to know them. I think the best way is get involved in a ministry. You'll get to know people. And the more you get involved, I appreciate people that volunteer and say, I want to get, help out. And that's how you really get to know people. You get to know what they're going through. And a lot of people are hurting. I said this act as normal as possible. Don't treat them weird. We kind of don't know what to do. Do I talk to them? Do I avoid them? And we kind of don't always know how to act around when we know somebody's hurting. Act as normal as possible. Usually good to not mention the problem, especially in public. You're walking somebody in the hallway and you see it. We're trying to show we care, and then we bring it up, and it just brings up that wound over and over. And especially women are emotional. You want to cry, and it's just it's tough. So we have to be careful. We think we're doing a good thing, but sometimes it's not. Don't try to figure out why. Okay, don't look at them and say, it must be God judging you. You must have done something wrong. We think that. Can you imagine if people thought that about us when we're going through, a tragedy or heartbreak? Oh, they must be unspiritual. God's punishing them. Look at Job's friends, and that's what they thought. And he was way more righteous than they were, and they didn't know anything about him, did they? And they're giving their reasons. You've blessed the traditions of your father. You sinned against God. God's punishing you. They had no clue. They were off base, and God corrected them, for what they did to him. But, you don't want to be that the friend, when you're down and you need somebody to pick you up, and you deserve this, and God's punishing you. No, you don't know that. Okay, you don't know. God could be using it to build somebody up, make them stronger. Use unsaid words to express sympathy. A squeeze of the hand, a pat on the back, touch of the elbow, just say comfort, just a little gesture like that. Show confidence in them, and try to decide whether the heartbroken person is reaching out. Maybe you know them better and they need somebody to talk to, and they're looking for somebody that they can, give their burden to. And the Bible says bear one another's burdens. And this doesn't mean, just the Bible does say that, help people out if you know they're going through a hard time, and, don't just ignore them and, stay away from them. We can help people through a difficult time. I mentioned this. Somebody gave us flowers one time and a card, and we don't know who it was. And it's such a nice thing. They left it on our car. And, just that little gesture is so encouraging to know people care. And just some things to do with the heartbroken here. We were looking also at treatment of followers. And I said the church is the most labor-intensive, leadership-intensive thing because it is all volunteers. So we, as leaders, have to be very careful, okay, that we treat the followers right. They're not getting paid thousands of dollars to come work and do ministries. That everybody's volunteering their time. We have to treat them right. And a leader should give the same loyalty to the follower he expects from the follower. If you want loyalty from your workers, you better be loyal to them. We have this tendency when something goes wrong, we want to throw our followers under the bus, I've done it too. Sorry to say to my wife, something wasn't filled out, and I should have taken responsibility, and I kind of put it on my wife, and I'm like, that's not going to breed loyalty. It's not the right thing to do. Our pride, I don't want to take responsibility, and it was them. I want everybody to know it was them. I had a situation, we were doing something, a church-related activity, and somebody left something out, and somebody, a leadership saw it, and they thought it was me, and they chewed me out, and I didn't say anything. It wasn't me, it was somebody else, and they were really grateful. They say, sorry for not saying it, thank you for not saying anything, and I just took it, and I didn't do it. It wasn't my fault, but I didn't, it was them. Don't blame me. It was them. I didn't do that, and that breeds loyalty. Leaders should accept followers as equals, okay? Just because you're in a position does not make you better than anybody else, okay? We're all equal. Don't think you're better than somebody else. It's good to be a leader and a follower, okay? Most people were followers before they became leaders, but that gives you a different perspective, okay? It makes you appreciate, when you're being a better follower and being a better leader. So don't be afraid of that. The leader should try to meet the needs of each follower, okay? It's not about, I'm the leader and you all need to meet my needs and do whatever I say and jump when I say. The leader needs to meet the needs of the follower, try to satisfy those needs. Maybe a need for security. You need to be told they're doing a good job. As a leader, compliments are, praise. Thank people for coming. It doesn't cost anything. Write a note. It's just like these people are giving up their time and they're helping, and it's just a simple little note, text. If you don't like writing notes, I remember as a kid we'd get gifts sent overseas when we were in Australia from different churches, and my mother would sit me down and make me write thank you notes to people, and that was like the most torturous thing in the world. Still, I hate writing thank you notes. I'm writing them to the teachers, and I'm like laboring over exactly the right words, and I call up my wife, and she does it in like 5 seconds, and I'm scribbling down, oh, that's brilliant, that's great. So I'm not the best at thank you notes. I really hate that, but take that time and just thank people. Show them that they're appreciated. They could be looking for security. Be careful with your criticism, too. Somebody's volunteering 10 hours and you walk in and you're like, oh, that's crooked. I can't believe you. Man, you'll be doing it yourself next time, okay? You may be straight, but you're doing it yourself. I heard a story, an efficiency expert was talking about how he was watching his wife cook, and he goes, she was taking half an hour to cook, and he told her, he said, you could do this quicker if you did all these things. And the person listening said, well, how'd that work out? He goes, great. He goes, now I do it in 10 minutes. You want to do everything. That's the leadership. It's not going to be all the ways the way you want it. Praise those people for all their time. If you've got to criticize, make sure you're giving, I think they say 10 to 1, 10 praises to every criticism, make sure you're praising, and then if you have to say something, they know your heart. Don't let it be just criticism. I'm telling you, you will be doing everything yourself, you'll drive everybody away. So meet their needs. The leader should get ideas from the follower. Brother Heil's definition of leadership is a leader is one who goes to all of his followers to learn from them. Think about that, isn't it? I'm the boss. I should know everything, and I've got to, everybody's got to follow me. And I heard this story a while ago. I was listening to this podcast about, it's called How to Take Over the World, and they had great Julius Caesar and Napoleon. And I heard this story with Napoleon, and I thought it was interesting. Basically, he was an artilleryman. He was like a lieutenant, and Paris was going to get overtaken by mobs. And so he rallied. They didn't have any cannons in Paris, and he rallied and got the nearest cannons and got them there just in time. The mobs were coming, and you may have heard the famous saying, give them a whiff of grape shot. That was Napoleon. They loaded grape shot in there, which is like little balls, and they dispersed. And his thing was, if we don't do something now, this mob's going to get out of hand, and then they're going to kill everybody. They just had the French Revolution, the mobs took over, killed all the monarchy, and just kept killing people. So he just seen that. He goes, if there was only a few soldiers there, and he knew if they took over, then they would kill everybody, and there'd be way, way more death. So he fires a cannon, and it quells the mob, and the leaders at the time put him in charge of the army, and he's 26. And at this time, the other countries saw what had happened in France, and they're like, well, we got to put this country down. We don't want our people to rise against the monarchies. So all these other countries are like, we're going to take care of France. So he's a 26-year-old. He walks in. He's in charge of the army. All these countries are getting ready to attack. And this is what he did. He went to the commander, someone who had been leading as long as he'd been alive, a general. He got and he'd gotten the job, like I said, by putting down the mob. So he went to the old general and began questioning him about the soldiers. And he asked some ignorant questions. He didn't know everything. He was just an artilleryman. He's 26. This commander had written manuals on soldiers, and he was an expert. And he wasn't afraid to go ask him questions. Everybody's like, he should know this stuff. He was a little ignorant. But the one commander said this. He says, it raised him 1,000 cubits, in my opinion. And he knew he didn't know everything, and he had the confidence to go in and ask. And most of us would say, I got to show him I know everything and, pretend I know it. And he didn't pretend. He just went in there and just started asking him all these questions that he needed to know. And he wasn't, it's our pride that we don't want to ask people, how do you do that? This guy, like I said, had been a commander for longer than he'd been alive. He had the humility to go and ask him these questions. He didn't care what they thought. And he said the other commanders looked at that and were so impressed with that he, as a leader, would do that. And, and they respected that. And now we know, and think about that. We know Napoleon. We know he became a great general, one of the greatest generals in history. But at the time, nobody knows this guy. This is a guy. And suddenly, think of the resentment that he's gone from a 26-year-old, did one thing, and now he's a commander and over them. I'm sure there was great resentment, and he turned that all around, was humble, and asked his fellowship what he needed to do. I think of the other biblical example is Rehoboam, Solomon's son. Okay? Now, this is a guy who has what? Positional leadership. You think he was ever a follower? Probably not. Okay? He's the king's son. He's got that position by birth. He's probably been pampered his whole life. So he goes and gets advice from his counselors. You're familiar with the story. And think about that. Imagine being Solomon's counselors. You got the wisest man ever, and you are a counselor to him. Okay, these are probably some very intelligent people to be Solomon's counselors. And what does he do? He doesn't heed their advice. Okay, they say, be easy on the people, be nice to them, and they'll follow you. And then he listens to his buddies, which don't know anything, don't know any more than he does. And that's why it's important to young people, don't listen to your friends, Your friends don't know any more than you do. Well, what do my parents know? They don't know anything. But your buddy that's just as old as you are and just as dumb as you are, you're going to go to them for life advice, At 15, 12, they know everything. But he goes to his buddies and gets terrible advice, and then, the people turn and revolt against him. But don't be afraid to listen to the followers. Don't be afraid to listen to those beneath you. It's been said that preaching is pouring back to the congregation in a flood what the congregation sends to the preacher in a vapor. And leading is collecting the knowledge of the followers, making each follower aware of the knowledge of all the rest. And I've heard it said that everybody knows one thing that you don't know. Find out what that is. Don't ever think, oh, I know everything. I've been doing this job and you don't know anything. Everybody has some area that they know, and we need to tap into that. The leader should be servant to the follower. Turn to Matthew chapter 10, verse 25. 20:25. Matthew 20, verse 25 says, "But Jesus called them unto him and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whoso will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many." And what is the Bible saying? It's saying if you want to be a leader, you better be a servant first. The way that we become leaders and have the right to be leaders is by serving. Okay? It's not, and it's something we need to, are you willing to, somebody said, how do you know if you're, a servant? Get treated like one, and how do you react? Okay? Well, I did all this work and nobody acknowledged what I did. I'm angry. Well, you're getting treated like a servant. The servant doesn't get praised for doing his job. It's just your job. You get treated like a servant. We get all up in arms and, you missed my name and I did all this work and you didn't say my name, and people are all upset. And it's like, well, were you doing it for recognition or were you serving? In serving, he convinces his followers of his sincerity, concern, willingness, and his ability to lead. And people will follow somebody that's a servant. Okay, you look at the military and the general, the leader that's willing to go in the front lines and lead by example. Those are the ones that they're going to follow. Okay, and we need to realize that. And somebody sees, this person's willing to, this pastor's willing to clean the toilet and unplug it and do whatever's required. When he asks me to do it, I'm going to do it because I know that guy would do it. And we need to have that type of attitude. Coerced fellowship is dictatorship, and earned fellowship is leadership. And we need to realize that. We can't force people to do anything. We need to earn their leadership, and we do that by being an example, by being a servant. It says, loyalty is not the absence of disloyalty. It is a positive trait, not the absence of a negative one. Let me explain that. A person is not necessarily loyal because he is not disloyal. There's some ground between loyalty and disloyalty. You could say that there is loyalty, aloyalty, and disloyalty. Disloyalty criticizes, aloyalty is silent, and loyalty defends. Okay, think about that. If you went and criticized me to my wife, you'd probably be a big mistake. She'd probably take your head off. Is it true? Probably. Does my wife know my faults? Absolutely. She probably knows 100 more. She knows more of my faults than anybody else in this room. Okay, and she lets me know about it. But if somebody comes and says, "Your husband," if they're going to badmouth me to my wife, she's not going to just, okay, being loyal. I didn't put him down. She's going to defend me, and that doesn't make me perfect. That doesn't make me, But she loves me. She cares, and she's loyal, and she'll let me know if I do something wrong. But if somebody else is criticizing, watch out, okay? So that's a definition of loyalty. Loyalty never allows one word of criticism about the leader. It's complete defense and support. Not everyone is talented, but everyone can be loyal, okay? And that doesn't, if you've got a problem, go to that person, okay? That doesn't mean the pastor or leadership is perfect, but what do we want to do? We want to go to everybody else and badmouth them, and then person that has the issue is the last person we want to go to, right? Okay, so it doesn't mean the pastor's perfect, I'm perfect, Okay, if I do something, come to me, but don't go to everybody else. That's kind of our, what we want to do, and put them down to everybody else. And well, did you go to, if somebody criticizes somebody, say, did you go to that person? Oh, no, they haven't, because they wouldn't be criticizing you if they had gone to that other person. So say that. Just say, hey, I don't know. You need to go to that person. Direct them to talk directly to the person they have an issue with. Don't criticize them. We can, like I said, not everyone is talented. That's something we can all be as loyal. Disloyal followers make poor leaders. Okay, you're going to put the leadership down, and then you're going to become a leader, and then expect everybody to follow you and not complain. You're going to be a poor leader. If for any reason the follower cannot give his trust and confidence to the leader, he should never rebel or revolt. He should very quietly and ethically leave. He has no right whatsoever to talk to anyone about his differences with the leader, and he should leave without causing as much as a ripple in the water. Okay, and you can go, there's other great churches. If you have an issue and you've gone to the pastor and you can't get it resolved, you don't need to, we are in the social media age, and we want to tell everybody about how we've been treated, and I'm a victim, and, they did this, and we got to have, this support group because he has said something I didn't like, and everybody's got to know how, what a victim I am, and how poorly I've been treated, and it makes them feel better. We're kind of in this victim age, and it's like, no, just move on, go somewhere else. You don't need to put him down and destroy him. Okay, you're really going to hurt yourself. All right. He has known hundreds of assistant pastors, music directors, and principals to be disloyal and cause trouble in the church. And, you can just leave. You don't have to, destroy something or bring that person down. In practically every case, the damage of the disloyal follower is far greater than the damage to the criticized leader. And realize that you are hurting yourself when you're tearing down authorities in your life. You are hurting yourself. Okay, that doesn't mean all authorities are perfect. And like I said, you can talk to them. And if it doesn't work, go to a different church. You don't need to tear it down. But you see some people, they got to tear every church and every job they've been to and this last job. And I'm like, so every place you work and go to church is terrible and mistreats you, and I'm like, or maybe it's not every church. Maybe it's you, Every person they have relations, they're going to tell you how this job and the 20th job, how they were mistreated. I'm like, I'm kind of seeing a pattern here. Maybe it's not everybody. Maybe it's you. It's sad to see people, and I've been in a church for a while, and they praise the pastor, and, they tell you, saved our marriage, we're on the rocks, we came, and, one thing they said they don't like, and suddenly that pastor's the devil, They gotta let everybody know, and he's the worst person in the world, and, and I'm like, how come you said he was the best, and he's never steered you wrong, and he's, saved your marriage, and, this church is amazing, and now it's the worst church in the world. And I'm like, really? Everybody changed that much? Everybody just went crazy? And, it's hard to believe sometimes. But be careful of that. There is a law of sowing and reaping. The pastor who criticizes other pastors will have people criticize him. If you, I heard a saying, and it said, people that will talk about others to you will talk about you. Okay, well, I'm just going to listen. I'm not joining in. I'm just going to be silent. They say silence is approval. I'm just listening in. I'm not doing the bad-mouthing, but, that same person that you're listening to is talking about everybody else. You don't think he's going to talk about you? Okay, absolutely. When as a follower one is disloyal, he is usually suspicious as a leader of those who work under him. Okay, why? Because he's torn down his authorities. Now he's suspicious that everybody's trying to get him, right? Okay, it's like liars, people that lie a lot, they think everybody's like that, and they don't trust other people, right? Because they think I was naive, I really was a pretty honest kid, and it really had a conscience. If I ever cheated or lied, it just bothered me, and it'll bother me for years, the rest of my life. I'll think, man, when I was in 7th grade, I looked at somebody's paper, and and so I think like that, and then I realized at the school, not all the kids, think like that. It was a little wake-up call, and I had to get a little suspicious. I'm so naive. These kids are perfect. They're going to do their work. They're not going to pull anything, and I'm like, oh, I got to get a little more suspicious. But those that are, disloyal or lie. They think everybody's like that, and they're naturally very suspicious people. But, you're going to get paranoid leaders that they pull down every leader in their life, and they think everybody's going to do that to them. It's tragic to see how disloyalty in the life of parents affects the kids. It's going to affect your children. You studied these children, and not one case has a child gone into full-time Christian service. And in most cases, they become adults who do not even attend church. Okay, well, I've got to let the whole world know how I was mistreated, and I got to have this website and this Facebook page about how, this church that, I said was amazing suddenly is, not amazing, and it's the worst church ever. But I got to let everybody know how, everything that happened. And, you're hurting your kids. Okay, like you said, most of them aren't even in church. Most of them aren't serving God. And you're tearing down the leadership authorities in their lives. You're tearing down your authority, okay? You're tearing down their authority. Train your kids, say authority is not perfect. You're never going to have a perfect authority. When you become a parent, you're not going to be perfect, but learn how to deal with that, okay? Learn how to approach it right. I tell the kids, I go, the teenagers, I say, if you have a problem with me, you can come talk to me privately, and it's not I'm always right and I never make a mistake, usually with kids you catch the second person, right? The first one's aggravating, and then, the other one blows up, and, and then they get in trouble, and, there's usually more to the story, and sometimes we miss things, and, maybe we do something to offend the students and we don't realize it. I said, come to me. I'll listen, and I've apologized. I've done things I didn't even realize. And, but teach them to learn how to deal with leadership and the right way. Next thing is treatment of those who have qualities that are irritating. Turn to Genesis 13, verse 5. I'm not sure, so sure nobody knows anybody that's irritating in their life. Genesis chapter 13. So just looking at how to treat followers, we want to be loyal to them, okay? Don't be proud. Realize that you can learn from them, meet the needs of each follower. Be servant to the follower, and that's really a key in Christianity. If you want to be in a ministry, you've got to have a servant mentality. So we're looking at treatment of those who have qualities that are irritating. Genesis 13, verse 5 says, "And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, let there be strife, I pray thee, between me and between my herdmen, and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes, and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the hand of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan. And Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from another. In Romans 16:17 says, Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. And when two people are closely associated, they'll have qualities that will irritate each other. Okay, maybe you're married for a long time, there's things about your spouse that irritate you, and things that you do irritate them. Like a brother and sister. I got these kids, and I think that's all they do is think of ways to annoy each other all day. It is just like, my wife tells me that they have this chair, there's 4 chairs. They have this little green kids chair, and they scoot around. They use it like a walker, and then they'll use it to climb on things like the piano and the table and whatever they can get to. So Ben had it, and he's scooting around. Well, he starts to pick something up, and his sister sees it. It's like a split second. She races over, grabs the chair, and takes off. And she's looking around, looking back, smiling at him. And he's like, ha, ha, she's smiling. And he's like freaking out, and he's running her down. There's 4 chairs, but they've got to have the one that the other one had. You know, that's kind of just what they do all day. And it's like, my wife leaves, and I have to watch my children. It's not babysitting, I've been told, when it's your own children. But I still think it's babysitting. And it's like they're just at each other. And I'm like, they're annoying. And it's like the only toy they want is the one the other has. And they'll, you know, when they put it down, it's like the other one grabs it as soon. Sometimes they don't even wait for them to put it down. They want it, and they just grab it out of their hand and take off. And I'm like, man, you guys, you know, it's just constant aggravation. But it's probably good for them. I was thinking about it. They're going to learn how to deal with irritating people. Okay, we are. I've read that in Europe and America, we're not reproducing enough. We have 1.3 children per couple, and that third of a child probably looks pretty weird. But you know, we have 1.3, so we're not even. You know, the only reason is immigration and that we keep our numbers up. But you think of a lot of people. What they don't want to. They want one kid, you know, they just kind of want a career and they want all this. I'm not saying that's bad, but that child sometimes grows up to be what? Spoiled. Okay, they don't have any siblings. When you have 5, 6 siblings, you realize you are not the center of the universe. You have 5, 6 people to deal with and that are aggravating you all the time, and you have to learn to get along with them and how to, you know, how to get along with irritating people constantly. I think Mrs. Keller, how many does she have? 12? I think she has a family of 12 siblings. I'm like, that teaches you how to get along with people. So it's a good thing sometimes, you know. You see single kids that have been spoiled their whole life and they're easily offended. I'm like, if you had a bunch of siblings messing with you all day, you know, you'd get a little thicker skin. But they're, you know, not used to that. But husband and wife, brother and sister, you've been married for any time, you know the buttons that get your spouse going, and they know the buttons that get you going. You know, there can be irritation. You have to be careful of that. So he says, first thing here is don't rely on doing better. Especially true in the case of adults, they're usually set in their ways. Okay, you get the older we get, the more set in our ways we get. He says fire and gasoline will always explode when they are mixed. Okay, and we know that. The gasoline can vow to do better. The fire can promise to improve, but it will not be done. An explosion is inevitable. Okay, you put certain chemicals and things together, it's going to happen every time. You put certain people together, it's going to happen. They just don't mix. And it doesn't mean they're both bad. Okay, there was a pastor, and he was working with another pastor on the mission field, and they had to part ways. You don't need to go and say, well, who's the one, whose fault was it, you know, who did what, you know. Sometimes there's just personality clashes. Especially with a missionary, you've got to have a type A personality to, you know, raise that money and do that. It's, you know, go to a foreign country. We're reading about Brother Russell. They build buildings, and, you know, you've got to be highly motivated type A personality. They got to mill their own wood, draw the buildings, and build them themselves, and that takes a very motivated people. Sometimes you get a couple type A people, and they don't always mix. It doesn't mean either one's bad. You know, one may have a different way of doing things, and it's just different ways, different opinions on how to do things. Doesn't make either bad. It's usually best that other measures are taken. Don't keep trying to put them together and say, you guys need to sort this out, you know. You need to, you know, stay together until you get it figured out. Well, you're just going to have problems. When finding a helper for a teacher, I'm the Sunday school superintendent and somebody needs a helper, I usually say, hey, you give me a list of people you want to work with, and we'll try to figure it out. I don't say, hey, you're going to take this person no matter if you like them or not. I want what? 2 people that get along. Okay, and if they don't get along with that person, I just say, well, you picked them. It's your fault. You know, it was your idea. You know, I'm sorry. I take away all the responsibility for me. I'm not going to force somebody on somebody that they don't like or can't get along. Okay, I want somebody that they can get along with and have a good relationship with. So the second thing is stay away from situations that cause irritation. And Abraham was Lot's uncle. When Abraham left Ur, he took his nephew with him and reared him as his own son. When famine came to the land, Abraham took his family to Egypt. There, he and Lot both became wealthy. As often the case, their wealth caused problems between them. Their employees, the servants, began to war, and something had to be done. So Abraham approaches Lot, suggests that Lot choose whatever land he wanted for himself. And think about that. He is the uncle, okay? If anybody could say, hey, I raised you, and you're wealthy because of me, I'm going to pick this, and you go wherever I don't want. That was very gracious of Abraham to say, you pick the land, and I'll go wherever you don't want. I mean, he is the uncle, and he's saying that to his nephew. So that was, very nice of Abraham, very diplomatic. And he was simply saying, Lot, let's not allow strife between us. Let's alleviate that which causes strife. It's best if we don't own the same land and share the same property. Let's circumvent the circumstances that cause the friction and the things that irritate both of us. And my sister and I got along pretty good growing up, but, we really took off when she left, When she's out of the house, she moved away, and I'd go visit her, and we were great, We've done so much better since we're not, living together, and that irritation, your siblings, you can't stand them when you're living in the house, and then they move away, and, you're best friends because there's not that constant irritation. And that's what Abraham did with Lot. There are some people you can work with, but you cannot play with. Okay? There are people with whom you can play with, but whom you cannot work. Have a social life with them, but do not work together. Sometimes, working together, the pressure, causes, problems. My wife thought I was a very laid-back person, till we got married. And I told her, I go, every time I went to visit you, I was on vacation, right? She was in Michigan, and then she was in Iowa, and I've got nothing to do. I'm just there for a few days. I'm relaxed, and, we come back, and I'm thrown into the school. I had no idea what I was doing. I had all this pressure. I just started school. I had no idea. And so I had all these pressures, and she's like, you're just like my father. I didn't realize I was marrying my father, which is a compliment, but, she didn't realize that there's a lot of pressure, we had that we didn't have before, and it was a long-distance relationship. So, she's like, wow, you behave a little different under pressure than on a vacation. I go, yeah, I do. And, we had to learn how to work things out. But some people you can be with for a short time, but not for a long time, okay? Discover how long you can be with them before problems arise and limit yourself to that amount of time. Okay, we have the Christmas holidays coming up, and we're around family, and sometimes there's issues with family. Can I say that? It's the world has become, everything's become political. Can I say that? And I'm like, maybe I'm getting more into politics, or maybe politics is just everywhere I go. It's my job, the masks, everything you do is just political. So it's hard to even, you got with some family members, it's hard to talk about subjects because they're trying to make sports political. Like you should talk about sports and, have some things we agree on, but, some of our family, they agree have total different views, and it's like you're trying to avoid the landmines and not say anything to offend, and it's like let's think about every little thing you say, and could that offend them, and could that start a discussion, and I don't want to start a discussion, and it's very nerve-wracking. The longer you go, the longer it's before somebody says something they shouldn't say, and you've started this fight, and then they no longer want to talk with you. So you have to realize and be careful, how long should I be with that? If you can't get along with the relatives and there's cause of strife there, don't plan a 2-week vacation with that person, and hope nothing goes wrong. That would be foolish. So understand that. I think of Pastor Lou and Jessica, and they said they can never play on the same volleyball team together. They just grate on each other's nerves, and he's telling her what to do, and they said they've got to be on separate teams. My wife and I, we play well together. We compliment her. She says I do hog the ball a little sometimes, but in general, we're okay. I like her being on our team, but some people, they just, even husband and wife, you think, oh, they're husband and wife, they would play well together and they would be a great team, and no, they can't do that. So we have to be careful. Certain people whom certain subjects cause strife, stress, avoid those subjects, okay? Don't look at, we want to get in a big discussion and prove them wrong, and, it's just going to cause strife. It's not going to help anything. Be careful of that. And just some things here. Stay away from situations that cause irritation, Don't be the little kid that just the little grin on their faces when they do something. I just watch them, and they're just like, Ben's got his binky, and Brianna doesn't even care. She never uses a binky, but she just goes up and just pulls it out of him, and he just, explodes. And I'm like, you're just doing that to aggravate her. Please stop, And she's running off with his binky, and I'm like, he's in tears, and I'm like, sometimes we can be that way as adults. I'll say this little comment and, torque them and, get something going and, throw it out there. And, we got to be careful of that. Avoid those things that cause irritation. Separate people, stay away from people. If you don't get along together, just stay away from that. I guarantee, a couple hundred people, there's going to be somebody you don't get along with, somebody that just doesn't gel, It doesn't mean I got to go to a different church. If we have family members that we don't get along with, we can't get rid of them, right? We're stuck with them. We learn how to deal with them. Same way with church. Let's close in prayer here. Dear Heavenly Father, we love you, dear Lord. We pray that we would be the right type of leaders, dear Lord, the right type of followers. Help us to be loyal followers, loyal leaders, dear Lord. Help us to be servant leaders, and just help us in our relationships with church members and family, and just help us to say and do the right things and be wise, dear Lord. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.